Hey class, here we are for our last math lesson of the year. I know it's hard to believe that it's already over, but here we are. So today for our final math lesson, we are going to be again working out of our math workbooks. We're going to be learning today about line plots. Line plots, they're a type of graph, and we're going to go through them together. So today, of course, you need your math book, you need your sharp pencil. We're going to do pages 715 through 717 together, and then you will do 719 and 720 on your own, okay? And I have this, of course, listed on LMS like always. One other thing I want to remind you, and I'll remind you again at the end of this video, is today, after you finish this math lesson and you finish your assignments, I need you to rip out all of your completed pages from your math workbook. If you have a stapler or a paper clip and you could just put them together, that would be so helpful to me. But anything that we either completed together or anything that you completed on your own, I need you to rip out, put together, and turn in so I can look at it, okay? All right, get your supplies and let's get started with this lesson. All right, here we are getting ready for our lesson. Draw and analyze line plots. So let's just jump right in. A line plot uses X's above a number line to show how often a data value occurs. Let's come down here to example 1 to see what they're talking about. Albert spun a spinner 16 times to see how often the spinner landed on each number. Display the data in a line plot. Okay, so here's the spinner that Albert must have been using. You can flick it and it goes around and around and around. And he spun it how many times? 16 times. So you'll see it numbers spun. It's like he recorded his numbers in this chart. All right, so he spun it. The first time he got a 0, he wrote 0. Second time he spun it, he got a 1, right? So he did that 16 total times. We're gonna take this information and create a line plot. So step 1 to do that says, draw and label a line plot. Include all values of the data and give it a title. That's what they did here. Notice how it looks just like a number line, right? So the title is numbers spun, just like our little chart. Those are just the numbers that he spun on the graph. That's all it's saying. And then it says include all values of the data. That means include the lowest number and all the way up to the highest number. We want to include all possibilities that they could have spun. We wouldn't want to include like 5, 6, 7, and 8 though, because those aren't options on the spinner. So that's what it says here, includes all values of data, 0 to 4. Great, number 2. And this is the part that really is like how you make a line plot. Draw an X above the number for each result. Complete the line plot by drawing the remaining X's. Okay, so notice how they've started actually. They've started this line plot. Every time that you have a piece of data, you record it on the chart by drawing an X over the value. So they've done some for us. Notice they have a 0. So they must have already recorded this one. The next number they did was a 1. So come down here. So there's the 0. Here's the 1. See, I'm just tracing over the green ones they've already done. All right, what was the next number he spun? A 2. So come here. There's a 2. What was the next one? A 1. Put an X above the 1. And notice how they're in a nice straight line. We don't want them to be like all over the place. So I have to mark that one off. So as you can see, it's probably one of the hardest parts of making a line plot is making sure that you're being consistent. Like when you cross it out, make sure you've put the X on the line plot. So I have made 1, 2, 3, 4 X's. So I should have crossed off 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. Okay, let's do the next line. 1, there it is. 2, there's that. 0, okay, now we get to add our first 0. There you go. And another 1. Fabulous. Now we're on to the third line, a 2. A 1. Ooh, here's a 4, our first 4. a 1, a 0, another 1, another 1, and a 3. And now I've crossed off every single number in my chart, and I'm gonna count to make sure that I have 16 X's because I had 16 numbers I needed to graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So we did it. We graphed this line plot. And so it's just saying that, you know, if you have 3 X's for the number 2, these 3 X's represent the 3 times that the number 2 was spun. So he spun on his little chart, or on his little spinner, he landed on 2. How many times? 3 times. Good. All right, and now we have to analyze the line plot. Remember, that just means we have to come up with a thoughtful sentence that describes the data that we see. Write a sentence to interpret the data. I mean, this really stands out to me right here. The number 1 has more than any other number. So that's what I'm gonna write for my sentence. The number 1 was spun more than any other number. Okay, we did it. Let's turn the page. I believe for example 2, we are still going to be working with this same line plot. It's still Albert's line plot. It was the one that we just finished making together, but they were nice enough to recreate it here for us so we don't have to constantly be flipping the page. And it looks like we're going to answer some questions after we analyze this graph. So let's do it together. Use Albert's line plot to find the difference between the greatest number of X's and the least number of X's. Number 1, find the number spun most often. Okay, which one has the most X's? The number spun most often was 1. And how do we know it was spun the most often? It has the most X's. And how many times was the number 1 spun? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Okay. Number 2 says find the numbers spun least often. And there's actually 2 of them. Number 3 and number 4 were both spun least often. What numbers were spun least often? 3 and 4. And how many times were each of these spun? Just 1 time. All right, and number 3 asks us for the difference, and this is a word that we know. Difference means we are going to subtract. The difference between the greatest number of X's and the least number of X's is blank. What was the greatest number? 8 minus 1 equals 7. The difference between the greatest and the least is 7 X's. All right, we're doing great. Down here to number 1. Display the set of data in the line plot. So we're making a line plot based on the data they give us. We're gonna make X's over top of the numbers, and we're gonna make sure it matches up with the chart. So I see that the title is letters in siblings' names, and here it's also letters in siblings' names. All right. So the number 2, how many times? Just once. Good, and I'm putting a check mark there so I know I'm done. How many for 3? 0, right? Do I have to make any X's? No, I don't. 4, how many times? 1, 2, there's 2 tally marks. So I make 1, 2 X's. Done with that. Number 5, how many tally marks? Again, 2 X's. Nice and organized is the way to do this, folks. 6, how many? Just 1. and 7 letters in a name. 1, 2. So 2 X's. There we go. We did it. Let's come over here to page 717. You are gonna do number 2, number 3, and number 4. I want you to try these on your own. I'm gonna complete them, then I'm gonna come back with the video and I will go over the answers together with you. All right, let's go over these problems together. Number 2 asked you to display the set of data in a line plot. So we're going to make a line plot out of this data. We're graphing the number of siblings that people in their class had. So there could be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 or more siblings, which is what you should have put down here along the bottom of the line plot. And then for the frequency, somebody has 0 siblings, 1 person. How many people have 1 sibling? 3, so that would be 3 X's. How many people have 2 siblings? 5, so 5 X's. 3 people have 3 siblings, 4 siblings, 2 people, and 1 person has 5 or more siblings. So this is what your line plot should look like. As you get older, you're going to learn that this is called a bell curve, and it's a pretty beautiful one. It looks great. What is one conclusion that you can draw from this line plot? What is one thing that you can say about the data? Well, most students have 2 siblings. That's the most number of people in the class have 2 siblings. So this does not have to be exactly like mine, but it should be something thoughtful about your data. And for exercise 3 and 4, they wanted you to just read this line plot, just look at it. So question 3 said, how many students' quiz scores are recorded? Well, how do you know how many people are part of the graph? You count the X's. That's what you needed to do. So if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 students whose quiz scores are in this graph. And what's one conclusion that you can draw from this line plot? What do you know about the data? Well, most people scored a 92 or higher, which is great. Only 2 people scored below. So again, this is my conclusion. You can come up with your own as long as it is thoughtful and related to the data. Friends, now for your assignment, you're going to do page 719 and 720 on your own. You have, it looks like for numbers 1, 2, and 3, you're going to look at these line plots, that data. For numbers 4 and 5, you're going to look here. For number 6, you're going to make one of your own. Number 7, you're going to tell me what is a line plot. Don't be afraid to go back and look in your book. And then number 8 is a test practice question. Friends, I am so proud of all the work that you've done with me this semester. I know it hasn't been easy, but you've really done well. And I have to say I'm so proud of you. Work hard on this very last assignment. Go Dolphins.